Okay, in Matthew chapter 24, Jesus begins to describe what it will be like at the end of the age. Okay, and he does this because the disciples ask him. They say, when will this happen? And what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age? Because he's spoken enough about the fact that he'll die and be resurrected, and he's kind of alluded to these things, and they just want more information. And there's so much that Jesus says here, and the vast majority of it I'm not going to talk about today, which means you talk about it. Show us what surprises you in Matthew chapter 24 in those comments, and really unpack some of those things and ask the Holy Spirit, what does this mean and why, and which of this is important and what should I focus on? And then share that with us. But of course, we know that Jesus does speak about that in the end times, nation will rise against nation, and there will be war and rumor of wars, and there will be earthquakes. And we see those things happening sometimes in the time we live in, enough so that people for decades have been saying, this is the end times, this has to be it. But people have been doing that throughout all time, even in the decades after Jesus died, when the temple was torn down. Like, it would be easy to look at all of this and say that was the end times, and people have different interpretations of that. But what I really want to talk about today is just something that I thought was really profound and interesting. It's just a single verse. So like I said, go ahead and give us the full context in the comments and talk to me about what you see in the whole of it, because I'm going to focus in so narrowly right now on Matthew chapter 24, verse 12. And Jesus says, because of the increase of wickedness, the love of most will grow cold, but he who stands firm to the end will be saved. And I don't know, that was just compelling to me, because I see the church right now really decrying just how wicked the world has become, how wicked culture has become, the wickedness we tolerate. And it has led to the church becoming kind of angry. And there's the righteous kind of anger that Jesus has, right? Many times we see Jesus in a righteous kind of anger. And I just don't know how I feel about the anger I see in the church about the wickedness that's increasing. The truth is, wickedness has always abounded. Wickedness is always increasing in some way or another, and it's probably cultural. Like, there's probably waves of wickedness based on the culture you're in, what society accepts and what society doesn't accept, what society controls and what society allows. But I just thought that was interesting, that it says the increase of wickedness will cause many people to have their love grow cold. And that's a really interesting warning, because, that may just point to that our love for God grows cold, but I think it may also mean that our love for our neighbor grows cold, because there's so much wickedness. We have this tendency to just want to set ourselves apart from it entirely, instead of going out into the world and loving people even in the middle of their wickedness, which is what Jesus did. He was constantly surrounding himself with sinners and showing mercy and showing forgiveness and showing compassion. And so we just talked a day or two ago about Jesus saying that the greatest commandments were to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself. And I think that it's strange that we think that perhaps we could just turn off the love for our neighbor because they're too wicked, but somehow still fulfill this law of like, well, I'll love Jesus and I'll love the church, and that will be enough. But I worry that comes from exactly what's being described here, when it says that because of the increase of wickedness, the love of most will grow cold. So I just wanted us to meditate on that a little bit, and to think about it, and think about in our lives where perhaps our frustration with wickedness has caused us to stop being as loving as we're called to be, to stop reflecting the love of God, which is constant for us, which has forgiven us that 70 times 7, which calls us to forgive people the way we've been forgiven. And how can we, even in the middle of the increase of wickedness, keep our love hot like God's love for us is hot? How can we not have our love grow cold? It's just something I want to pose, something I'd like us to think about. And for tomorrow, of course, read Matthew chapter 25, and we'll talk about that together.